It's a beautiful evening. The moon is just rising. A full moon.
Universal has like the big three from the 30s, Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. And I think the Wolfman is one of the more popular of the group, simply because he's the one that people can relate to the most easily. Nobody can relate to being a Transylvanian count, and they're certainly not going to relate to being a guy who's been put together from other bodies. But here you got Larry Talbot, who's just this regular guy who has this thing happen to him. And that's a recipe for longevity, I think.
The werewolf is to do with the beast let free. Deep inside, there is this ravenous wolf. It's a good explanation, or a way of dealing with just human rottenness.
You're not leaving us. You're not going with him. He has the sign of the beast on him.
He is dangerous only when the moon is full.
I think there's something really almost profound about why young people become interested in horror. You know, most horror fans become horror fans at the time of their puberty. And the werewolf is a perfect symbol for puberty. Your body is changing, your voice is changing. You're having these sexual urges that drive you to do things that you didn't do when you were 10. And so I think that's what really the Wolfman saga and its popularity is so much about.
You mean the werewolf?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's an old legend. You'll find something like it in the folklore of nearly every nation.
Almost all societies around the world have some kind of man-beast, or lycanthrope, or werewolf. Really, it's a pretty international thing.
There's always been that kind of, the whole legend and the myth around werewolves. But it was really Universal that put all that stuff together in a way that really made it what it is. The Werewolf of London was really the first of the werewolf movies that I know of anyways, and it did kind of set some of the rules. It was a very different makeup. People kind of say it looks more like Elvis Presley than a Wolfman or something. And probably rightly so. Henry Hall thought the original makeup that Jack did disguised him too much, and it was important that you kind of knew it was Henry Hall and stuff. I still think it's a really cool makeup, but I also think the test makeup that he did on him was great. And it's very much what the Wolfman ended up being.
You have to remember that Universal had made a bunch of these movies, and they were usually based on prior pictures that they had done. But the Wolfman was a brand new monster.
I think George Wagner, the producer of The Wolfman, said before he saw the script, all he knew about werewolves were they howled at the moon and hung around Scottish castles.
Werewolf? What's that?
And that really is all anybody knew. So they were starting with a blank sheet of paper.
You mean runs around on all fours and bites and snaps and bays at the moon?
Oh, even worse than that sometimes.
As a feature film, it is really well produced, it's beautifully photographed, and it has a certain poetic quality to it. And when you watch the movie today, it's very dreamy. It's like a dream. With those foggy sets and those trees, it still has quite a punch.
I killed Richardson. If I stay around here much longer, you can't tell who's going to be next.
Kurt Siodmak had big ambitions for the Wolfman. He was looking back to the classic Greek Aristotelian definition of tragedy. A great man who is cursed by the gods to fail, and his destiny cannot be escaped. And what Kurt Siodmak brilliantly did is he gave us an everyman Greek tragedy. And in this case, he's cursed by the supernatural. And he is in the wrong place at the wrong time. He becomes bit by a werewolf, and all of the qualities that he has, that we have, that we can identify with, they avail him not.
That brought something to the werewolf that the other great monsters had, that sense of reluctance and tragedy. The Frankenstein monster didn't ask to be made into a monster. Dracula, I think we have to accept, is just a total bastard. But the Wolfman is, I suppose, the one who most nakedly pleads for sympathy.
I'm going with Larry.
No, it's no use.
And so that becomes Kurt Siodmak's 20th century version of Greek tragedy.
Your suffering is over. Now you will find peace for eternity.
It's interesting that the Wolfman seems to have basically created the mythology we now accept to be werewolf mythology. Of course, Most of it was made up by scriptwriter Kurt Siodmak, but is now accepted by many people to be some part of ancient werewolf mythology.
In medieval mythology, there were a lot of ways to turn into a werewolf. If you ate a certain flower accidentally, you would become a werewolf. If you ate a wolf's brain, you would become a werewolf. That's almost logical. Now, what Kurt Siodmak did was, he made it so that if you're bitten by a werewolf, you become a werewolf. Well, that, of course, is exactly the mythology of the vampire.
And yet, I think if you said that to people, they would say, well, where did that come from? They'll say, Romania? Some gypsy ancient thing? Or, he made that stuff up.
How brilliant was Kurt Siodmak to come up with a legend for the werewolf that you believe is what the legends really were. The legend of the Wolfman is clearly defined in that movie of 1941. All of the stuff that we think of as werewolf lore, the full moon, even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night.
They become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
All that stuff came from that one movie and from that one brilliant screenplay.
He was obviously aware of the power of those lines because it's repeated 3 times in the films.
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf.
When the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
He was obviously subscribed to the same notion that apparently Shakespeare did. Anything important, hit people with it 3 times. The lines about becoming a wolf when the wolfbane blooms, frankly, it seems as if you're really being hit over the head with it, possibly by a silver-tipped cane.
Kurt Siodmak also introduced the fact that you destroy a werewolf with silver.
A werewolf can be killed only with a silver bullet, or a silver knife, or a stick with a silver handle.
That silver is oftentimes associated with the church because silver was often blessed by church fathers, silver crucifix or other icons.
The famous silver bullet, which comes in later films, came because he was listening to the Lone Ranger on the radio, and he thought, that's a good idea. They could melt the crucifix. And we've seen that repeated in other movies.
So there are certain church-approved tools and symbols of purity that can destroy a werewolf very much as they do a vampire.
One of the most prevalent features of the Wolfman is the whole notion of the wolf seeing a pentagram reflected in the palm of his prospective victim. Bela Lugosi sees a pentagram in Fay Helm's palm, and eventually Lon Chaney Jr. sees a pentagram in Evelyn Anker's palm. Now, this is a fascinating idea. It's entirely Siodmak.
So Kurt Siodmak bundled all these things together, and they were potent because they tap into the same primal feelings that we have that make the vampire myths so potent, about good and evil, and about the church's role, and about man's corruptibility.
The evil and the Wolfman is the evil of the duality of man, of people who have these urges that they can't control, but when they're not having those urges are perfectly good people. So I think that's one of the underlying reasons why these pictures have been so popular. And it took so well that they were able to use it for the next 10 to 15 years as the template for werewolf movies. The rules, as we all know, are made to be broken, and considering the fact that Kurt made up most of them anyway.
Whatever weakens the human soul, especially during the cycle of the full moon when the forces of evil are at their strongest, bring the spirit of the wolf to the fore.
Bram Stoker, in writing Dracula, solidified it. He created Dracula, Transylvania, Vlad the Impaler. So Kurt Siodmak and the Wolfman solidified the werewolf for us the way that Bram Stoker solidified the vampire for us.
And oddly enough, these little bee pictures are probably still going to have their adherents, particularly if they're seen by people when they're young, and then you can carry it with you.
The movies become our mythology. He's still turning into the werewolf. He's still turning into the Wolfman. Every time someone sees a full moon, there's still, someone talks about it. Because it has great power.
Bye.